Is this the year that Florida finally breaks through and wins the SEC East? A Halloween cocktail party in Jacksonville will determine just that. Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, the best kept secret in all of college football. Today, bringing you our 2020 Florida Gators college football predictions. As always, make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. And also make sure to check out everything down in the description below, where you can visit our official website, thegridironexpert.com, and also check out everything on our social media pages over on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So guys, I am buying into the Florida hype. 2020 is a year that many believe the Gators could finally beat Georgia and win the SEC East, maybe even a year that Florida could get all the way to the college football playoff. And I wholeheartedly believe that the Gators are in for a very special year in year 3 under Dan Mullen, a guy who has led the Gators to a 21-5 record over the past 2 seasons, and that includes an 11-2 record last year, capped off with an Orange Bowl victory over Virginia. We take a look at their roster. We'll start on the offensive side of the ball. Dan Mullen, a brilliant offensive mind, and he has brought that back to Gainesville. An offense that struggled mightily during the Jim McElwain era has drastically improved and become really one of the best in the country under Dan Mullen. They returned 6 starters from last year from a unit that scored 33.2 points per game in 2019. They had the 16th ranked passing offense in the country, led by Kyle Trask, who threw for over 2,900 yards, 25 touchdowns to just 7 interceptions last year. And keep in mind, he wasn't even the starter at the beginning of the 2019 season. If Felipe Franks does not go down with an injury against Kentucky, we may have never even seen Kyle Trask last year. But he is back, one of the better quarterbacks in all of the SEC. He gets his wide receivers back in Trevon Grimes and Kadarius Toney, a very speedy and elusive wide receiver. And then you've got arguably the best tight end in college football in Kyle Pitts, who had over 600 reception yards and 5 touchdowns last year. So the offense is going to thrive in year 3 under Dan Mullen. The only small question is their offensive line that returns just 3 starters up front from a unit that really wasn't all that great last year. Outside of that, if they correct that, Florida's going to have one of the best offenses in the SEC this year. When you look at their defense, guys, Florida has been known to have great defenses for many, many years now. That was kind of the strength under Jim McElwain, and under Todd Grantham now with Dan Mullen, that narrative hasn't changed. They allowed just 15.5 points per game last year and ranked 9th in the country in total defense. So they were pretty dang good in 2019. They have a chance to be even better in 2020 despite losing Jonathan Greenard up front. Despite losing him up front from a defensive line that racked up 49 sacks last year, they're still going to be looking really good because you've got Brenton Cox, the transfer from Georgia, coming up to help that defensive line. And that secondary, guys, might be one of the best in the country with Marco Wilson, Kaiir, Elam, and Shawn Davis. They're going to be very, very difficult to throw against. This Florida team has what it takes to win the East. They have what it takes to win the SEC. Can they do it? Take a look at their schedule here. We have them opening up with a win over Eastern Washington, then of course a win over South Alabama. But before they can get to that South Alabama game, they've got to take on Kentucky in week 2. And Kentucky and the Wildcats, they have given Florida a fight over the past few seasons under Mark Stoops. They came to the Swamp 2 years ago and upset the Gators. That was something that I don't think anybody saw coming. And then last year, Florida got their revenge over Kentucky, but only beat them 29-21. Keep in mind, it was just a 22-21 game late in the fourth quarter before they added that late touchdown there. This is a Kentucky team that should be a little more stereotypical when it comes to their offense, because last year it was just wild. They had Lynn Bowden, a wide receiver, lining up at quarterback and did very well with him. But now they should have a quarterback under center now in Terry Wilson, maybe Joey Gatewood if he is eligible. But Terry Wilson, who was the starter back in 2018, should be back and fully healthy. They have a very dominant run game with 2 very capable running backs. in a defense that was number 2 in the country in passing yards per game allowed last year and 21st in the country in total defense. Mark Stoops has shown that Kentucky is no longer afraid of Florida. Mark Stoops has shown that it is possible for Kentucky to defeat Florida. But I just don't think the Wildcats have enough to come into Gainesville this year and steal the win like they did back in 2018. It's going to be very low scoring, a very defensive-led game in this one, but I think it's Florida that makes just enough plays on the offensive side of the ball to get a win over the Wildcats, and they are 3-0. They then go on the road to take on Tennessee, and this is a game that many are picking as an upset. Many are picking the Volunteers to win at Neyland Stadium over the Gators in a year with high expectations in Knoxville. Florida has annihilated Tennessee, though, the past 2 years, defeating them 34-3 last year and 47-21 the last time they visited the Volunteers. And now I get that Tennessee is trending up. I get they return a lot offensively, arguably the best offensive line maybe in the country. You have a very dominant run game, but what Tennessee needs is better quarterback play. They need consistent quarterback play, and Jarrett Garantano, who more than likely will be the starter this year, has to show that he can be consistent. I don't think he's able to do that, especially against this Florida secondary. Expect this game to be closer than the 31-point game we saw last year, even the 26-point game we saw 2 years ago. But Florida does have enough to go on the road and take down the Volunteers. They are 4-0, and we're going to give them a win over South Carolina as well, bumping them to 5-0. Florida defeated the Gamecocks 38-27 last year, coming off a loss to LSU, while South Carolina was coming off a win over Georgia. So many thought that maybe the Gamecocks at Williams-Brice Stadium could pull off that upset, and they did hang with the Gators for a while. They were in that game well into the second half. But Florida ultimately pulled away, and say what you want about the referees, they still got the win. While South Carolina has a very strong secondary themselves, led by Israel Mukuamu, they are still going to have to find some consistency like Tennessee on offense. Can they stay healthy? Can Ryan Helinski play better at quarterback? A lot of keys there for Will Muschamp and his offense, and a big year for him. They don't get one of the key wins against the Gators. 5-0 here going into the LSU game. This is going to be one of the best games of the year within the SEC. Last year in Death Valley, Florida fell to the Tigers 42-28. 42-28. And LSU got a late touchdown there with about 5-6 minutes left to extend to that 14-point lead. So all things considered, considering how good that LSU team was, considering LSU had home field advantage in that game, Florida held their own and gave the Tigers one of their toughest tests of the 2019 season. Well, now, practically everybody from the LSU team is gone. Joe Brady is gone. Dave Aranda is gone. Joe Burrow is gone. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is gone. Justin Jefferson gone. Defense gone. There's so much that LSU lost from that national championship squad a year ago that while I don't think they're going to just completely fall off, they are going to take a step back. And with this game being in the swamp, with Miles Brennan still trying to prove himself, yes, he has a very good core of wide receivers, but he's going to be accurate and good enough to get them the ball. I just don't see the Tigers coming in here to the swamp and stealing a win in a series where Florida and LSU have alternated wins since 2015. No one has strung together consecutive victories since 2015, and I think that streak continues. Florida, 6-0, with a big win over LSU and the Tigers. And by this point, guys, Florida is a top 4 team in the country. They should start off 2020 as a top 10 team. You're 6-0 with a win on the road against Tennessee, a good Kentucky team, and a good LSU team. They are absolutely top 4, top 5 in the country at this point. They come into this road game against Ole Miss, guys, and this is a major, major trap game. Huge. Cannot afford to overlook the Rebels here. You've got a bye week right after it. You're emotional after a huge win over LSU. You're thinking, man, we're tired. We just want to get to our bye week and start looking forward to Georgia. Dan Mullen and the Gators cannot afford to do that. And I do not think that they will do that. I think they go on the road and defeat Lane Kiffin and the Rebels. Now, this is an Ole Miss squad, guys. It's going to be very dangerous on the ground. You've got Jerry and Ely as your running back, and you've got John Rice Plumlee, who was one of the top rushers in the SEC last year as a quarterback. So they were 9th nationally in running offense. Florida was 8th nationally in their run defense. So I don't think Ole Miss can win this game solely on the ground, which means Matt Corral or John Rice Plumlee has to improve as a passer, get it out to guys like Elijah Moore within that core of wide receivers. And I just don't know if either of those two quarterbacks can do that against this Florida secondary. So in a close game, in the first game in Oxford between these two squads since 2007, Florida does get the win. They're 7-0 going into their bye week, going into the biggest game of the year for them. The SEC East, more than likely, barring a complete collapse from Georgia or a complete collapse from Florida, the SEC East will be decided on Halloween in Jacksonville. This is the game that everybody has circled on their calendar. Georgia has owned this series over the past few years. They've won 3 straight against the Gators. And every year it seems to be getting a little closer. They blew them out in 2017. They won comfortably in 2018. And last year in 2019, the Gators fell by just 7 to the Bulldogs. That was the closest margin of defeat during that 3-game winning streak for the Bulldogs. Georgia kind of made headlines this past offseason by landing Jamie Newman, the transfer quarterback from Wake Forest. They also landed JT Daniels, the transfer quarterback from USC. So you lose Jake Fromm, they've got more than enough people there to take over that starting job. The offense is kind of going through a major rebuild with Todd Monken coming in as their new offensive coordinator, a young core of wide receivers, and also some new running backs as they lose DeAndre Swift. But Georgia's defense, guys, could be the best in the country. They were one of the best in the country last year. They're going to be one of the best in the country this year with 8 returning starters and a secondary that might even be better than Florida's. Might even be better than Florida's. Now look at this game, guys. Look, I know they're coming off a bye week here. I know Florida's coming off a week of rest, but I just don't think they have enough still to take down the Bulldogs. Until they can do it, it is Georgia's division to lose. And maybe this is the year the Gators get it done. But I think the Florida offense is stifled a little bit by this Georgia defense. I think Kirby Smart and his Bulldogs rise to the occasion. And I really think that Georgia's offense, you see a major rebuild and a major change from how stagnant they were last year, especially by October 31st. Newman or Daniels, whoever it is, has had enough time to settle in, to build chemistry with the offense, to learn the schemes. And I think Georgia goes into Jacksonville and wins a game that's decided by a touchdown or less, but still defeats the Gators for the 4th year in a row. Until Florida can do it, I'm still picking the Bulldogs. So Florida drops their first game of the season to Georgia. We have them bouncing back with a win over Vanderbilt and a win over Missouri. So great bounce-back games there. Shouldn't really have to worry about either of those. Vanderbilt could be the worst team in the SEC this year. Florida defeated them 56-0 last year. And then Missouri as well, a team they defeated 23-6 last year. New head coach Eli Drinkwitz, solid defense, way too many questions offensively. Florida's defense should have a field day in that one. We have defeating New Mexico State, which leaves the road game at Florida State, the in-state rivalry game, to conclude the season. Mike Norvell is now in as the new head coach of the Seminoles. And while I do think the Seminoles improve, while I do think they get a winning record, while I do think they make a bowl game, one of those 6, 7, maybe 8 wins is not going to come against the Gators, even if the game's in Tallahassee. Florida State had one of the worst offensive lines in the country last year. That's got to improve. They've got to find a quarterback. James Blackman, maybe Chubba Purdy. Who knows? Norvell will figure that out. But I still don't think this offense is going to be much of a match for the Florida defense that, with one loss, is still in contention for the SEC title, depending on how Georgia does, and is still a dark horse sleeper for the college football playoff. We've seen crazier things happen. Keep in mind, they also defeated the Seminoles 40-17 last year. I don't see Florida State being 23 points better than they were last year, even with home field advantage. So the Gators go on the road, get a win over Florida State. And I have Florida and Dan Mullen finishing the season at 11-1, guys. 11-1. Which means if they upset Georgia, yeah, we've got them undefeated. We have Florida going undefeated if they take down Georgia. And there are 3 big games on this schedule, guys. Georgia's the biggest one. LSU at Tennessee. Those are the 3 that I think are the biggest for the Gators this season. Of course, don't sleep on the Ole Miss game either. Lane Kiffin, he's a pesky little sucker. But Florida, 11-1. What does that mean? Well, it means that if Georgia slips up, just a few times. Keep in mind, they do have a road game against Alabama, that the Gators can win the SEC East. It also means that if Georgia goes to the SEC championship but loses that game, Florida still has a shot to slip into the college football playoff. We've seen it happen. Alabama did it just a few years ago. Auburn won the West, lost the SEC title, and Alabama still got in as that 4th seed. So 11-1, despite the loss to Georgia, does not ruin Dan Mullen and the Gators' college football playoff hopes. It would be the best season he has had to date since he arrived in Gainesville. This is a very, very good Gators team, guys. Do not sleep on them. Do not brush them off. Do not say they're overhyped, because that is not the case. These are SEC title contenders, and these are college football playoff contenders as well. And I have complete and utter faith in Dan Mullen and his squad to get the job done in 2020. So guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, and share our videos. Also, make sure to check out everything down in the description below over on our official website, thegridironexpert.com, for exclusive content there, and also exclusive content on our social media pages over on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.